It all started with a scream that cut through the cold night like a blade. Rain hammered against the glass walls of the private parking basement as a luxury wheelchair skidded backward, its occupant trembling as a shadow approached him under the flickering lights. The man in the chair, once powerful, untouchable, surrounded by wealth and fear, now shook like a helpless child. His tailored suit was soaked, his voice cracked with terror. He raised his trembling hands and whispered, "Please, don't hurt me, I can't walk." That same moment, the shadow stepped into the light, a hood fell away, and the CEO's eyes widened in disbelief, because the man he feared was someone he once destroyed without even remembering. A single dad who had come back unexpectedly, not for revenge, but for something far more painful. If you believe in kindness, second chances, and how life can turn tables in unexpected ways, please make sure to like, comment, share, and subscribe. Your support truly means everything and helps powerful stories like this reach more hearts. His name was Michael Reyes, a man who once walked with pride through the same corporate skyscraper that now belonged to the terrified CEO a few years before this stormy night. Michael hadn't been a shadow lurking in a parking basement. He was a father trying desperately to provide for his only daughter, Elena. She was barely 7 then, bright-eyed, fragile, and the only light left after her mother passed away. Michael worked as a floor supervisor at a massive logistics corporation, Vandal and Pierce Enterprises. The company was known for its wealth expansion and ruthless discipline. The CEO, Richard Vandal, had a reputation carved from stone, feared, admired, and untouched by pity. Michael was one of the many invisible employees who kept the empire standing. He worked double shifts. He took overtime others refused. He never argued, never complained, and often fell asleep in the break room because going home wasted the time he needed to earn more money. Everything he did for Elena. She was born with a heart condition that required constant monitoring, expensive checkups, and rare medication. He could barely keep up. Yet whenever he held her little hand or listened to her messy singing, he felt like the richest man alive. But trouble came the night Michael stopped a truck from leaving the dock. There had been a major error, mislabeled cargo containers worth millions. He refused to let the shipment leave without inspection, and in doing so, he saved the company from a catastrophic loss. The next morning, instead of being thanked, Michael was called into a glass-walled office where Richard Vandal watched him the way a hawk watches prey. Vandal never asked him how he discovered the error. He asked only one thing: why he dared interfere without permission. Before Michael could even explain, Richard fired him, accusing him of incompetence, overstepping, and causing delays that tainted efficiency. Michael pleaded, not for himself, but for his daughter's medicines and hospital expenses. But Richard didn't care. He believed emotions were a weakness. He believed suffering was a choice. And so, in one cold moment, Michael was put out like trash. Days turned into a desperate scramble. Michael begged old coworkers for favors. He tried smaller jobs, but no one wanted to hire someone fired for misconduct. Rumors spread. His truth didn't matter. His daughter's health worsened. The landlord threatened eviction. Doctors refused treatment without payment. As Michael watched Elena's breathing turn shallow, while machines beeped in rhythm like a countdown, he knew he had to make a choice. He sold his car. He sold his furniture. He sold everything he could until there was nothing left except the clothes on his back and the fragile hands of his daughter. Doctors finally stabilized her condition. But Michael now had nothing. No job, no savings, no home, just Elena and the bitter memory of a CEO who walked away untouched while lives collapsed under his decisions. For months after, Michael slept in shelters, washed dishes for coins, cleaned hotel halls in the middle of the night, and carried Elena on his back any time they had to move. He never complained. He never blamed the world. He always smiled at her, even with tear marks still drying on his cheeks. Years passed. Day by day, sacrifice became survival, and survival turned into silent strength. Michael eventually found work again, not as a manager or supervisor, but as something people rarely respected, a small, underpaid overnight public transit worker. He cleaned and maintained security around transit stations. It wasn't glamorous, it wasn't enough, But it was honest, and it let him take Elena to school each morning. They learned to rebuild life one humble brick at a time. Meanwhile, Richard Vandel's life took a sudden turn. During an exclusive ski trip, an avalanche struck unexpectedly. His body was rescued, but his spine was severely damaged. He would never walk again. The same man who commanded millions could now barely lift himself into a chair. His wealth could buy wheelchairs, attendants, and luxury cars, but it couldn't buy back his ability to stand. He became trapped in his own immobility. His company slowly pulled away from him. Partners began to circle like vultures, ready to take control. His coldness had earned power, not loyalty. Now he found himself surrounded by those waiting for him to crumble. The world had flipped, and he was forced to experience vulnerability, the one thing he once dismissed in others. Fear, helplessness, and regret crept in through the cracks he had built years ago. And yet, life wasn't done with him. Because the night his sole-trusted driver fell sick unexpectedly, he insisted on being driven home manually by a substitute arranged by the security office, a substitute who wore a hood under the heavy rain, someone who simply said, "Let's get you home safe, sir." That substitute was Michael. Richard didn't recognize him. Why would he? To him, Michael had always been invisible, just another worker, another replaceable piece in a money-making machine. As they entered his basement parking, the rainstorm knocked out parts of the electrics. The lights flickered, the elevator stalled, alarms beeped. The car rolled to a shaky stop. When Richard demanded help getting inside, Michael tried to steady him, but the CEO panicked, thinking he was about to be robbed. Fear flooded his voice. He cried out, pleading like a child, "Please don't hurt me, I can't walk." Those words hit Michael harder than thunder outside. This was the same man who once threw him out without mercy, the man who crushed his life while standing tall, now begging from a wheelchair. Michael slowly removed his hood. The CEO's eyes widened as recognition struck. Rainwater dripped from Michael's face, but his gaze wasn't filled with hatred. It was tired, heavy, human. He gently secured the wheelchair, adjusted it so Richard wouldn't slip, and shielded him from the rain with an umbrella. Richard couldn't understand why. Why help him? Why show kindness? He expected revenge after what he had done. His voice shook, confused and ashamed. Michael finally spoke softly, explaining that life had already punished him enough. Vengeance wouldn't heal anyone, but kindness could change futures. He told him about Elena, how she survived, how he rebuilt life with nothing but faith and effort. He didn't ask for apology, because apologies wouldn't return what was lost. He didn't demand compensation, because his daughter's smile mattered more than money. Richard broke inside, not from pain in his spine, but from the realization that the man he once discarded was the one lifting him now. Tears streamed down his face. For the first time in his life, he felt weak in the presence of strength that came not from power, but from heart. Michael pushed him into his building lobby as if escorting a wounded soldier, not a man who once ruined him. Before leaving, Michael gave Richard a card, a simple contact number. Not for help, not for favors, but in case he ever needed someone to talk to. Someone real. Someone human. He walked away through the rain feeling no victory, no triumph, just quiet closure. If this story touched your heart even a little, please like, comment, share, and subscribe to support meaningful stories. It truly helps more than you think. Before the end, here's a special request. Comment something kind below for anyone going through a hard time in life. As days passed, Richard stared at that card more than anything else he owned. A single dad with nothing had given him something priceless, compassion, and Richard slowly began to change. He reopened conversations with employees, listened to their lives, and treated them as humans, not machines. He requested Michael to return, not as a worker, but as someone who would help rebuild the company culture from the ground up. Together, they created support systems for employees, healthcare funds for families, emergency financial programs, and fair treatment policies no one had ever imagined under Vandel and Pierce. The company transformed because its owner discovered vulnerability, and its savior was a man who had once lived through it. Elena visited the office one day, now healthy, laughing, studying to someday help kids like herself. She hugged Richard, thanking him for giving her father a place where he mattered that wasn't about money or rank. And as she smiled, Richard, sitting in his wheelchair, felt something he hadn't felt in years. Peace. He didn't get his legs back, but he regained something greater, humanity. And Michael didn't get revenge. He got dignity, respect, and the knowledge that kindness, even when undeserved, changes the world in ways hatred never can. In a world where a powerful man once begged not to be hurt, a single dad chose to heal instead. That was the true victory. If this story moved you, please like, comment, share, and subscribe. Your engagement keeps stories of compassion alive. Thank you for watching.